everyone, and welcome back to my channel, BethChatsBooks. Now today, as you can see, I am back in my brother's background for this video, and that is because my sister is working from home today, so I can't film in my usual spot. And today's video is going to be a book review of Tessa Hadley's Bad Dreams. Now before I get on to talk about this book in a little bit more detail, I'm just going to mention that in my March wrap-up, I forgot to mention that I buddy read The Hate U Give with Dane from Dane Reads and Todd from Todd the Librarian, so I'll link both their channels down below, and I'll see if I can do cards of their kind of wrap-ups that they've done this month, or reviews in which they've actually included that book, so you can go and check that out. I just wanted to quickly mention that before I get into this video because I realised I didn't include it in my last video. But we will just go on with the book review now. So I received this book from Vintage Press through the mail, and I read this in one sitting. Now I've heard a lot of people really enjoy Tessa Hadley's works. I know she has an extensive array of works that she has out there in the wide atmosphere of the book world. However, I wasn't blown away by this piece. I know in my April TBR I mentioned how I'd read about 12 pages and really enjoyed it, and since that very vague introduction to this short story collection, my opinion has rapidly changed to one of slight disappointment. So I've given this book overall 3 out of 5 stars, but I want to explain in more detail why I've given it that disappointing review, because I kind of expected more from this book. So this book follows different stories. For example, on the back it says, 2 sisters quarrel over an inheritance and a new baby. A housekeeper caring for a helpless old man uncovers secrets from his past. A young girl accepts a lift in a car with a group of strangers. An old friend brings bad news to a dinner party. Now, what I really did like about this is I really like Tessa Hadley's writing style. I think she writes beautifully. I think she writes subtly. I understand that a lot of the praise talked about how she writes really well human experience, human emotions, which I completely agree with. But what I didn't like was the continued repetition of a structure that I think fell flat on each individual story. So in the end, I didn't even have one story out of the collection that I particularly liked or loved. And I became quite indifferent at the end of the collection because the structure was constantly repeated in a very frustrating way. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about what I mean by that. So basically, Tessa Hadley sets up the story brilliantly. Each story was set up fantastically and I couldn't fault her for that. But there seems to be a bit in the story where there should be a turning point, there should be a revelation, there should be something that kind of shocks or moves us out of that comfortable zone that we started the initial story in. However, that turn never happens. I feel like each ending kind of dissolved into thin air. There wasn't a significant ending that made you ponder or think or linger with the characters for some time after. Now, I don't know whether that's because I've read a lot of short story collections where the whole premise is to be a twist at the end. For example, I read Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, and the whole story relies on you getting into that false sense of security in the story and then a massive reveal at the end. I've also read Daphne du Maurier's short story collections, and some of them. I read Don't Look Now, I think it's that. I'll just correct myself somewhere around here if I've said that wrong. About a father who loses his daughter drowning and then gets haunted by this belief that he keeps seeing her everywhere, and there's a massive twist. I'm not going to ruin that because that's a fantastic short story. And also with Jen Campbell's short story collection that I read recently, a lot of those were trying to unnerve you from the very beginning. So I'm used to going into a short story collection expecting to be shocked because you've only got about 20 pages to really grip a reader in, so you don't want fluffy, light, easygoing prose in a short story collection because you want that development of a world and of characters if you're going to see them through in a novel form. So what I found frustrating about this is each time there's a point that I could definitely highlight in each story, that I could underline and highlight and say this is the turning point where we want a twist of fate, a different alternative ending. You know, you've worked up the structure to this point, here is where you need to change it. And I felt like she didn't do that. There were so many examples in this short story collection where I felt like this is where you could have gone with that story. Yes, maybe it's quite cliche, maybe it's dark, maybe it's what everyone expected and you didn't want to do that. but otherwise the stories have felt very flat. For example, there's bits where there's a couple of stories from the little girl's perspective, and we see her perspective and then we see something unfold in the story, and you want to tie her experience, which in both of the short story collections it's feeling uncomfortable, something's not quite right, and then to pair that with the event they've seen or the commentary of the other characters and bring it together. I'm trying to be very vague because I don't want to ruin the stories if people do want to read this collection. However, there was no tying, so in a couple of stories you would hear somebody else's point of view, a revelation would be revealed and you'd understand something about someone else's character's point of view, but they would never merge to make a complete whole, and that's why the overall stories would just fall a little bit flat for me. That's really how I felt about it. If anybody else has read this collection, I'd love to know what you think about it. And if you've read any Tessa Hadley and you think I should start somewhere else with her novels and not her short story collections, I would love to hear from you. So please leave a comment in the comment section down below if you think I should give her another go. I really want to give her another go because the writing was brilliant, but the stories were very, very disappointing. I really wanted this twist. I didn't mind if it was dark and unnerving. For example, the cover story is called Bad Dreams, and I was expecting it to be quite a gripping short story collection, and in the end the story that contains Bad Dreams is as simple as it seems. It's a little girl who wakes up from a bad dream. And so I think these short stories weren't simplistic because the structure was definitely built there. I just think they weren't executed fully at the end, so that's why I can only give this short story collection 3 out of 5 stars. But I want to thank Vintage for sending me this copy. I really, really enjoyed reviewing this copy for Vintage, and I would love to work more with them in the future if that's possible. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please hit the subscribe button if you want to be alerted for when any of my future videos come out, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new video. Bye now.